Hey guys, so we have learned how to name compounds that have single carbon bonds and double carbon bonds and triple carbon bonds. And now is the last section where we're going to learn what if there are elements other than carbon and hydrogen involved. So far we've only been dealing with carbon and hydrogen situations, but there are plenty of other elements that kind of bond into that chain, and you kind of change the naming a little bit in order to identify that element. And so looking at lesson 4, a big table that you're going to keep coming back to is table 4.1. And it basically shows you the different types. So basically, if a formula ends in OH, basically the name changes to OL at the end. If you have this group at the end, you might change it to aldehyde at the end, and so on. So this table is really helpful, but honestly, I would scroll through, and I'm going to do it with you, these problems, because the explanations, the example problems really help, and I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. We're going to get through this together and follow along as best you can. If you feel like you're struggling, that's totally okay. It would be normal, and I would expect you to be wrestling with this, but you can get it if you just kind of keep sticking with it and keep trying your best. You're going to come away with a better understanding of how to name functional groups and organic compounds. So you're doing great. So let's start with problem number 6. So it asks you to look at this formula and identify some different things. So looking down at this picture here, see how there are BRs attached in? So we need to figure out what that functional group is called. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I wasn't sharing my screen. Looking at problem 6 right here, we need to identify some different things about this compound. So look at how there's different BRs attached in here, right? So what is that functional group name? The functional group is just like basically what it's called, like as a shorthand. And so when you have, look at here, BRs added in, the name of that functional group is called a halogen, right? So remember how in this problem there are BRs, or it's called bromine. Bromines are attached in. Well, when you look at this table, find that situation, and I can see it right here. Here is where there are bromines added in. The name of that functional group is called a halogen, right? So the functional group name is called a halogen. The class of organic compounds, see this tab here called class, okay? So the class of this is called an alkyl halide, alkyl halide. So you can see there, you're just going to pull that information straight from the actual, from that actual table. But for the compound name, it might be a little bit harder, and it will help to scroll down to that section. And thankfully, it's kind of easy to work through. So when you name an alkyl halide, basically, like here's a great example here. If you substitute in something like a Br or maybe a Cl, they're called halogens. You indicate where they are. So this one's on carbon 1 and this one's on carbon 3. So it's called 1,3 dichloropentane because this is chlorine, right? So looking at our example, see how we have 6 carbons here? 6 carbons. So we know that the name is going to end in hexane because hex means 6 and ane is because they're all single bonds. And then we need to show where the bromines are. There's a bromine at carbon 2, a bromine at carbon 3, and a bromine at carbon 5. So it's going to be 2, 3, 5 tribromohexane, simply because we're showing where they are. This means 3. There's 3 sets of them on there. And then the name of bromine, we're going to call it bromo. So you kind of do the first syllable only. So that will be the name right here for number 6. Okay, so this is problem number 5 in your lesson. It says, what is the organic compound with a general formula R-X? And you will see multiple versions of this problem where it'll give you a general formula and it asks you to identify the compound. We're just going to do one of these, and you'll see multiple versions that ask you, what is the name of the compound with a general formula, blank? And I'm going to show you how you find it. All you need to do is go to table 4.1. So it asks, what is the compound with the general formula R-X? Going over to table 4.1, see this general formula column right here? we need to find R-X from that column, right? So where is R-X? You can see it right here. So any compound that has R-X in it, the name of it is alkyl halide, an alkyl halide, where X is equal to fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and iodine. So basically that X can represent multiple elements. But either way, you just find it from this column and you find the name of it right here. So the name of this will be the alkyl halide. And try it with your other problems. Go to that general formula column and identify the name. Okay, let's look at this problem here. Look at the structural formula given and identify these three things. So we need to identify the functional group, the class, and the compound name. So what do you notice is unique about this compound? You see this right here. Normally, it's just a hydrogen attached. And right now, there are OHs attached, or they're called hydroxide whenever it's OH. Hydroxide is OH. So we need to look for that on here. So do you see anything with OH next to it? Well, you might see a couple things like this right here has OH, but it has other stuff going on as well, right? But this top one has just OH. So this is the section that we're in right here. And I'm just going to scroll down to it for the alcohol section. So let's see. So basically, when you have OH attached, you take whatever the normal name is and you change it, the ending to OL at the end. And so methane becomes methanol. Ethane becomes ethanol. So all we have to do is name the compound and then change the ending to OH for the compound name. Now, to name the functional group, we have to name the functional group first. So I'm going to scroll up to table 4.1. So look at this tab here. We know it's this right here. So the functional group name is called hydroxyl because you can see it's right next to it there. So the functional group name is hydroxyl. The class of organic compounds, where is the class? Here's the column for classes. So the class of this is called alcohol. So this is called an alcohol class. And then now we need to name it. So we're going to name it like normal. So remember that we're going to name these 5 carbons. So 5 carbons means that you'll do pent. Pent means 5. This will be pentane, okay? And the name will become pentanol. Pentanol, okay? But there are 2 hydroxyls. Okay, so we're going to name it pentane. It's going to be kind of weird. And then we're going to say diol. Di means 2. And this OL is telling you that's what you change it to show that there are hydroxides there. So pentane diol. And we're going to indicate where they are. One of them is on carbon 1 and one of them is on carbon 5. So the name is going to be 1,5 pentane diol. So I know that's kind of confusing, but we're just kind of shifting the name endings to indicate what has changed. And so for this one, what's changed is that there are hydroxides. Let's look at this one. This one's a little bit more simple. There are no extra groups. Like, look, it's all carbons and H's like normal, right? So this problem is just asking you to solve and find the answer. I'm not sure what problem number this was, but this was in your lesson. So I thought I would do it with y'all. So again, there are 5 carbons here. This is our parent chain. So since there are 5 carbons, we know that it's going to be named pentane. Okay, so look at that. It already eliminates our answer options. It's not going to be this one. It's not going to be this one. It's not going to be this one, right? And now there's an extra group coming off right here. So we have to figure out what that group's name is. So remember that right here, there are 2 carbons and 5 H's, right? So 2 carbons and 5 H's. So which one is that? If you look right here and match it, 2 carbons and 5 H's, that'll be an ethyl group, right? So this is going to be called ethyl pentane, and it's coming off of carbon 3. So it's going to be called 3-ethyl pentane. This will be our answer right here. Okay, problem number 19 now asks you to identify some things here. So look at this compound right here and what is different about it. The only difference is that there is this O group right here. So we need to find a match for that from this table here. Okay, so we need to find, there's lots of oxygens here. So let me zoom in. But remember, our oxygen was smack in the middle of like a chain of carbons. It was smack in the middle of it. So we need to find a scenario like that. The closest one to that would be this right here, an ether group, or that's how I say it's ether. You see that O is just attached, and then these R's represent long chains of carbons. And so that R just means carbons. So ether, is what it's going to be. And so it asks for the name of the functional group, which is ether. Okay, so the functional group name will be ether. The class of that is also happens to be named ether. So we're going to name that ether as well. And then we just have to name it. So we're going to scroll down to the ether section. If you want to just like do a search for it, you can go to it quicker. But let's go to that section and actually read about it and read how do you name ethers. Okay, so when you have an oxygen in the middle, basically you name each branch. And so like this is a methyl group and that's a methyl group. And so it's called dimethyl ether. This is an ethyl group and that's an ethyl group. So it's called diethyl ether. And so you kind of just name the functional, the groups coming off of it. So this group right here, what is this branch called? It's a C2H5 again, right? So it looks just like this right here, this tab here. So that is an ethyl group coming off. This is ethyl. And then what is this one right here? There are 4 carbons here. So we need to find a branch with 4 carbons. So when you look at the structural formula over here, see how this last one has 4 carbons? So it's a butyl group. Butyl. Okay, so the name is literally going to be ethyl butyl ether. You literally just name the groups that are attached to that oxygen. So ethyl, butyl, and then it's an ether group, so ether. So this is the name right here. Okay, next problem, number 23 that I want to go through. Again, we're going to look at this compound and find it. So what do we notice about this one? Well, it's got that O double bond C, and then there's just an H coming off of it. So let's see if we can find that from table 4.1. So let's find table 4.1. So it was an O double bond C dash H. So let's zoom in. This is O double bond C, but it's dash OH. This is O double bond C, but it's dash O. This one looks kind of close. Let's just double check though. So this one looks close, O double bond C, the ketone one. But this one is perfect, O double bond C dash H, right here. So the functional group name is carbonyl, and the class name is aldehyde. Carbonyl, and then aldehyde. And then how do we name this? How do we name aldehydes? I'm just going to search for the aldehyde section so that we can actually figure out how they're named. So it looks like when you have an aldehyde, you name it like normal, and then the name ending changes to AL, not OL. So methane becomes methanol. Ethane becomes ethanol. So it's kind of weird to pronounce it that way. You just change the name ending to AL. So let's go ahead and name this like normal. So this is our parent chain. There are 4 carbons. So the prefix for 4, what is the prefix for 4? The prefix for 4 is bute. So we're going to name this butane, but we're going to change the name ending to butanol, simply because just you've got to change that A. So we're going to name this butane, but we're going to change the name ending to butanol because aldehyde groups, their name ending changes to AL. Okay, so for our next problem here, let's identify the functional group that's here. So what do you notice that's different about this compound? Well, the carbons, the hydrogens, that's all normal, but you have this group right here. So you've got that O double bond C group, and it's connected to some other carbons. Remember, you can denote that with R. R just means it doesn't really matter. It's some carbon chain. So it's connected to a carbon on the left and a carbon on the right. And so we're looking for something like this in our sheet here. So let's see if we can find that here. I see an O double bond C dash H. That's an aldehyde, right? Here's O double bond C dash OH, O double bond C dash O. Those are all close, but not exactly it. Here at the bottom is O double bond C, just like that. So for this one, for O double bond C, we can see that's going to be ours. And so that is a ketone for the name of the class. And the functional group is called carbonyl. So carbonyl and then ketone. So let's see how ketones are named. So I'm going to scroll over to the ketone section by searching for ketone. And we can just see how ketones are named. Here we go. So for ketones, the way that we name them is we name them like normal. You count up the carbons and you name them like normal. And then you change the ending to like anone. So propane becomes propanone rather than propane. So propane becomes propanone. Butane becomes butanone. So let's name this compound here. How many carbons do we have? We have 5 carbons. And so what is the prefix for 5? It's pent, okay? So the normal name for this would be pentane, right? You just name it like that. This is just the parent chain right here. There are no branches. And so it's going to become pentanone because of that O double bond C group. And we also have to show where it is. It's coming off of carbon 2, right? So the name is going to be 2-pentanone for that right there. The next problem that we're going to work through, I'm sorry, I didn't copy over the number, but if you scroll down to the next type of problem like this, let's name this one. So now we're looking for a functional group that is O double bond C dash OH. O double bond C dash OH. And it doesn't have to like look exactly like that, as like it could be tilted a little bit, but we need that structural formula, O double bond C dash OH. So let's go back to that table. O double bond C dash OH, you can find it right here. The name of the functional group is carboxyl, and the name of the class is carboxylic acid. Just like that. And then how do we name it? We're going to scroll down to that section, and I'm just going to do a Control F search to see how to name it. So for carboxylic acids, let's see. Basically, when you name it like normal, you count the carbons and you name it, and then you change the ending to oic. So ethane becomes ethanoic acid. Propane becomes propanoic acid. So name it like normal, change the ending to oic. So we have 4 carbons here. What is the prefix for 4? 4 is bute. Okay, so the normal name for this would be butane, but because we have this carboxyl group, it's going to become butanoic acid. The ending changes to acid as well. And the carboxyl groups are always at the end, so you might say 4-butanoic acid. You don't need to do that because the assumption is that those carboxylic groups are always going to be at the very end. And so you don't even need to really notate that it's there because it's the only place that it can be. Okay, next one. This is problem 33. We need to find the group here. So look at that functional group right here. It is O double bond C dash O, if you see that right there. So going over here, when we name esters, we need to basically find the longest chain that there is. So when you look at this example, this is the longest chain of carbons, and you name it. And then you count this other side as kind of like a branch coming off of that ester, okay? So let's go over to ours. Our longest chain is right here, right? This has the longest amount of carbons there. It has 5 carbons. So going over to back to lesson 2, to that list here, when you have 5 carbons, you should put the prefix pent in front. So this would be pentane, right? And the name will change to pentanoate. That's how it changes for this functional group here. So when the O8 is there, when an ester is present, you change the ending from pentane to pentanoate. So now we've named this part, and calling it O8 like that takes care of naming this part. It's insinuating that that's there. And then we have to name this part. This is a branch. It's a CH3 group, which is methyl, right? So the name of this is just going to be methyl pentanoate for this one. You kind of just name that branch and tack it on in front for this one. Last example here, we need to identify the functional group and all that. So what do you notice about this compound? It's got these NH2s coming off, two H's and one N. So let's see if we can find something like that from that table. Okay, so I'm seeing it right here. So these are amines, and I'm going to have you guys fill out the functional group and the class information right here, but we can learn how to name it ourselves. So I'm going to go over to the section for amines. Let's see. So basically, you're just going to name it and then change the ending to amine. So this is a methyl group, so it's called methylamine. This right here is an ethyl group, so it's called ethylamine. If you have amines on both ends, then you say diamine, and then you name it like normal and indicate where they are. So coming off of carbon 1 and carbon 3, right? That's kind of what we have here. So let's name our parent chain first right here. There are 4 carbons. So based on our table, the prefix for 4 is bute right here. So our name will be butane, okay? And so we're going to change that to butane diamine, because you add amine to the end, and see how we have 2 amines, so it'll be diamine. And then we have to show where the amines are. There's 1 amine coming off of carbon 1 and 1 amine coming off of carbon 4. So the name will be 1, 4 butane diamine. I know that these are kind of overwhelming, but when you look at the examples in the lesson, which you can have pulled up when you take the quiz, when you look at these examples, they really help you get a grid for each type. And I'm the type of person that really loves examples. So I would scroll and have each one pulled up and say, oh, okay, I kind of see how this is being named here. And so make sure you have lesson 4 pulled up when you take the quiz. Otherwise, you will not do well on it. Have the functional group table pulled up so that you can look at that or take notes on it yourself if you want to. And if you have any questions at all, you can text me and I'm super happy to help.